Could this sort of thing really have happened? No, 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 it's impossible. This didn't make sense. Little Phoenix shook his head furiously, believing that he must have seen wrongly or there must be a mistake somewhere. However, fact had proven itself once again that he was just too young and innocent. Huang Yueli's fair and slender fingers gently picked up the second fifth-grade magical beast core, and with the movement of her fingers, she crushed yet another one to pieces. The energy stored within the magical beast core had once again surged outwards and drifted towards the position of her dantian. Little Phoenix had truly become dumbfounded. Within such a short time, Huang Yueli had actually managed to refine all the energy from the fifth-grade magical beast core, and without taking any time off to rest and adjust, she had immediately started absorbing the next magical beast core. The process of this magical beast core was similar to the previous one. The only difference was the amount of time Huang Yueli had used to absorb the energy was shortened by a quarter of an hour. Perhaps due to the familiarity from the previous round, the speed was naturally heightened. After the refinement had completed, she held out her fingers once again to reach the third magical beast core. At this moment of time, Little Phoenix had expended all his energy to even be shocked any further. For Huang Yueli to be abnormal till this stage, in future no matter what happened, he would not waste his energy to be shocked. But very quickly, Little Phoenix dispelled these thoughts thoroughly. Because after spending a total of 10 hours of refining 9 pieces of 5th-grade magical beast cores, Huang Yueli outstretched her hands, and this round, she actually took a 6th-grade magical beast core. What this female devil is really. Little Phoenix held it in for some time, and he was still unable to find the correct term to put into words because the abnormality was way beyond how he could describe this black-bellied master of his. She was simply heaven-defying to the extreme. Who does she think she is? How could she actually be able to do so? The energy stored in 6th-grade magical beast core was higher in 5th-grade magical beast core by 10 times and above. Even if she was able to absorb the 5th-grade magical beast cores, she might not be able to absorb the 6th-grade ones. If something had really happened, what should we do? After the 6th-grade magical beast core was crushed, the energy that flowed out was indeed denser by several folds than before. That raging energy was spread throughout the little study room, as though it was about to blow the room up into pieces. It seemed like Huang Yueli's array formation was not able to contain the energy, but from the surroundings outside the array, the rays emitting from the array patterns were intermittently visible, seeming to be and not to be. However, even such a powerful energy had to bow down in front of Huang Yueli. This energy, under her oppression, had lined itself up into a queue and absorbed into her. There were a total of 4 pieces of 6th-grade magical beast cores. Every single time she crushed one piece, Little Phoenix's brow would subconsciously waver and his heart would suffer another bout of worrying and shock. What was the limit of the female devil? Her innate skill should have long surpassed the real flame spirit physique. How much more energy could she absorb? But was this really possible? If she was to continue, would it really be alright? Little Phoenix's heart was pounding hard, and it was till the last magical beast core being totally absorbed before he could finally put down the big stone that was weighing on his heart. Finally it had all finished. And it's great that nothing had happened. But at this moment, Huang Yueli opened the last box that was placed beside the bathtub. When this box was just opened, it emitted a light red radiance and turned the entire 4 walls of the study room into a tinge of red hue. You can also listen on. Little Phoenix's eyes almost falling out and his face was frighteningly pale. What she's playing for real. Is this the legendary 7th-grade magical beast core? If it was said that Huang Yueli could absorb 5 6th-grade magical beast cores, it was still within Little Phoenix's acceptable range. But now that she was preparing to absorb the 7th-grade magical beast core, even Little Phoenix was unable to maintain his composure of the current situation. The reason was the intrinsic quality of magical beast core of 7th grade and above were totally different from 6th grade and below. 7th grade magical beast cores were basically the offspring of divine beasts and ordinary magical beasts. The offspring had inherited some divine beast blood, so their magical beast core base was essentially of a different grade from 6th grade magical beast core. The energy contained were strong and more aggressive, and the danger increased 100-fold. A first-degree realm practitioner aiming to absorb a 7th grade magical beast core. This itself was not just seeking death but aiming for the spirit to be dispersed and the soul to be shattered to bits. Female devil, don't. You cannot be rash, don't be rash. Little Phoenix couldn't bear it any further and immediately rushed forward in an attempt to stop her. It wasn't easy to find a master like Huang Yueli, so he really couldn't bear to see her toying around with her life like that. After all, her innate skill was powerful and she knew how to roast chicken drumstick. Putting aside her vile character, she had no other shortcomings, and was passable as his master. But he was still one step too late. Huang Yueli's actions was very quick. Once her fingers felt the magical beast more, she had instantly crushed the magical beast core without any hesitation. The intense impact of the explosive energy from the 7th grade beast core almost blasted Little Phoenix out, heavily smashing him against the ceiling of the study room. On the wall were several cracks which formed when his tiny body had smashed against. At the same time, the water in the bathtub had turned into red smoke, encompassing the entire room. The vapor rose and every single level of smog were boiling and still burning. Huang Yueli's sight congealed, attempting to gather the energy of the 7th grade magical beast core. But this round, even she felt that she had some difficulty in doing so. 7th grade magical beast core's energy was extremely powerful and it was full of impact, totally not heeding to her commands but trying to desperately escape from her clutches and disperse outwards. She bit the tip of her tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood towards the direction of the scattered pieces of the magical beast core. The energy in the air seemed to pause for that one instant, and following that, she used all of her power and finally managed to coacervate the energy. Although it was harder to coagulate the 7th grade energy as compared to the 5th and 6th grade magical beast cores, and her absorption speed was much slower, but she was still able to succeed in collecting all the energy without a single trace of dispersion out of the array. However, the energy of the 7th grade magical beast core was too strong, and although Huang Yueli managed to preserve all the energy, but in order to refine it, it was still a difficult task to complete. This round, there wasn't that insane speed like before. For an entire 3 days and 3 nights, she sat quietly in the study room and refined the fire-attributed profound energy within her body, not stopping even for a moment. Outside the study room, the guards and maids within the residence took turns dutifully to stand guard outside the little courtyard which Huang Yueli had shut herself into closed-door cultivation. Whereas for Moe, from sunrise till dawn, he had his flexible sword in his hands and stood guard silently outside the courtyard entrance under a tree every single day, without a word. Kai Wei reminded him several times to rest. After all, Huang Yueli would probably be in closed-door cultivation for at least half a month, so for the time being, she would not be able to leave her room. You can also listen on. However, Moe kept Li Moying's orders in his mind and did not dare cut some slack, fearing that something might happen to his future mistress. To go into closed-door cultivation to advance in level was not a small matter, and there could be various sort of accidents which might happen. Even though Huang Yueli had outstanding innate skill, but he still could not afford to be careless. 3 days had passed just like that. Early this morning, Manager Sun from Thousand Treasure Pavilion found his way to the manor and insisted on looking for Huang Yueli. Moe went to meet him on behalf of Huang Yueli. Manager Sun, 3rd Miss is currently in closed-door cultivation and is not convenient to meet you. What is your purpose for this visit? Telling me will be the same. Manager Sun had seen Moe with Li Moying and knew that he must be his boss's subordinate, and Moe was also a powerful expert. So Manager Sun was very agitated when he saw Moe to the extent of almost kneeling down. "Sir Moe, please help us. Our 1,000 treasure pavilion have been wrecked by someone." "What? What happened? Tell me slowly." Moe frowned. Manager Sun was on the verge of tears as he spoke with a forlorn expression on his face. "Sir Moe, I also got to know about it some time ago that the new boss of our 1,000 treasure pavilion was actually Prince Yuang in incognito. Before Prince Yuang left, he told us that he will be gifting the 1,000 treasure pavilion to his fiancée, third Miss of the Bai family, and we will be working under third Miss. So that was the reason for me to come and beg third Miss," Moe replied. "Go straight to the point. Today someone went to 1,000 treasure pavilion to wreak havoc." Manager Sun immediately replied, "Really?" Ever since the news that Prince Yuang is our new owner had been spread out, 1,000 treasure pavilion's business had been great daily, and there were many visitors from our neighboring countries who came in fame. However, when we opened for business this morning, there was no one outside at all. When we went out to take a look, we realized that our entire store was surrounded by some people, and they even threatened to capture all the people in our shop. "What?" Moe asked inquiringly. Since everyone knows that 1,000 treasure pavilion is master's business, there would still be someone who dares to wreak havoc. In South Yu Kingdom, who would dare to antagonize our master? Manager Sun scowled miserably. "The person leading this is the Crown Prince. We're not sure where he heard from that boss had already left the South Yu Kingdom and he will not be back for some time. So the Crown Prince used the excuse that our 1,000 treasure pavilion had cheated him of his money and he wants to capture all of us and put the crime on our heads, and he had also mugged all the valuables in our shop. With the help of the bodyguards in 1,000 treasure pavilion, this subordinate risked my life to come here. There's such a thing. Looks like since Master had left, there are many hearts which have started wavering. That's right. Now, only third Miss will be able to suppress the Crown Prince." "Sir Moe, is it possible?" Moe shook his head and interrupted him. "Nothing must happen to third Miss at this juncture. Since this is the case, I'll make a trip with you." But the people whom the Crown Prince had brought along are the most powerful golden-scaled guard in the entire South Yu Kingdom, and it was rumored that all of their cultivations are at least in the second-degree realm and above. "Sir Moe, I know your cultivation isn't bad, but 2 fists are no match for our hands." Manager Sun was not a practitioner with innate talent, so towards the difference in strength between Moe and the golden-scaled guards, he had totally no idea at all. Moe didn't explain further and only replied with one sentence, "Don't worry, I won't embarrass Master." He informed Kai Wei of what had happened and proceeded to lead Manager Sun to 1,000 treasure pavilion. Kai Wei was very worried. From her view, although the Crown Prince was not as good as Prince Yuang, but he was still one of the top talents in South Yu Kingdom, and the golden-scaled guards were all top experts. You can also listen on. No matter how tough Moe was, he was only a bodyguard beside Prince Yuang. How would he be able to deal with so many people? So ever since Moe left, Kai Wei was unable to sit or stand still, and she kept walking to and fro. Every 15 minutes, she would look towards the main door to see if Moe had returned. Not knowing why, her heart had a bad premonition, as if something troubling would be happening today. Time passed quickly, and it was until noon when a sudden pattering sounds from hooves echoed from the main street outside the Valiant Marshal Manor. A pleasant feeling swelled up in Kai Wei's heart as she immediately rushed out to welcome the guest. "Brother Moe is finally back. Everyone, quickly go and welcome him. Remember to check if he's injured." The few guards responses and hurriedly rushed to the main door. These few days, Moe had enlightened them on their cultivation, and everyone were grateful and treated him as their teacher. Kai Wei followed them to the main door. However, before she had reached, she heard a series of battling sounds, and immediately following that, there were some bang-bang sounds, and a figure was flicked into mid-air and fell onto the ground, fainting away from serious injury. Kai Wei had a great shock and her eyes opened wide in surprise. Lying on the ground were Valiant Manor's guards. Who dared to come and create havoc at the Valiant Marshal Manor? And without a single word, they had dealt the guards with serious injuries. Just at this moment, someone strode into the main door. The person at the foremost position was a young lady, who looked to be about 16 or 17 years old. Her countenance was enchanting, figure was slender, and what was most amazing was she had a refined temperament, effortless, filled with an air of elegance. One look and you'd know she was someone extraordinary. Where is Bairuoli, that slut? Ask her to stand before this princess this instant. Kai Wei was dumbstruck and her heart had been twitching, knowing that today there would be big trouble. But she could only force herself to go forward to send her greetings. This lady, may I know who you are? Pa, a resounding sound rang. Kai Wei had yet to finish her words when a slap broke her sentence. This slap was vicious as it made her fly from it. Half of Kai Wei's face immediately swelled up like a steamed bun and she had fell over on the ground. By the side of the young lady was a young man who was dressed like a bodyguard as he said sternly, "Are you blind? Don't you even know our 7th princess? Where is Bairuoli? 7th princess has arrived and she didn't even come out to kneel and welcome her. What punishment should she receive?" 7th princess. Kai Wei held on to her face as she forced herself to turn and look at her. 7th Princess Li Shuer had left the South Yu Kingdom more than a year ago to the Celestial Light Academy to set on her learning path and had rarely shown her face in the capital, so Kai Wei did not recognize her. However, just by the monstrous bodyguards that she brought along and her imposing manner, Kai Wei knew that she should be the 7th princess. But why did the 7th princess suddenly come to the Valiant Marshal Manor? And she looked like she was seeking revenge. Obviously she was not going to be nice to her 3rd miss. Kai Wei didn't speak up and the bodyguard hurried sternly, acting dead. "Didn't you hear what I asked? Where is Bairuoli? Ask her to come out and receive our 7th princess." Kai Wei was both shocked and frightened, and she was trembling in fright. But she knew that every practitioner's closed-door cultivation period was very crucial and cannot be disturbed. At this moment, her heart was yearning for Moe. If Moe was here, at least there'd be someone powerful to drag on some time with them, but since he's not here now, the remaining people here were not able to resist against the people that 7th Princess brought along. You can also listen on. Why did Moe have something on now and leave at this critical timing? A sliver of doubt flashed past Kai Wei's mind, but she didn't have time to think deeply into it. Li Shuer didn't get a reply from her and started to feel impatient. "All right, stop dragging on with these people, let's go in directly. This princess want to see where can that little slut Bairuoli hide." Saying that she strode inside the manor. A bunch of monstrous bodyguards followed behind her and whoever guards from the Valiant Marshal Manor stood in the way were sent flying, crashing heavily onto the ground and losing their consciousness. Just as Li Shuer was about to enter the backyard, Kai Wei turned anxious and without caring for any other things, she immediately climbed up and rushed in front of Li Shuer to stop her. 7th Princess, PL, please wait a moment. 7th Princess gave her a sweeping glance and said, "Scram." Kai Wei was frightened till she could not stand properly, but due to her loyalty towards her mistress, she persevered with standing in front of the 7th Princess. But her voice started to tremble. 7th Princess, even if you go in now, it's useless, because our young miss is currently not in the manor. Oh, really? Hearing that, 7th Princess's eyebrow raised up. "You'd better not be thinking of lying to me. If I were to find out that you dared to lie to me, this princess will definitely make your life a living hell. Kai Wei shuddered as her back broke out in cold sweat, drenching her clothes. Won't dare to lie to 7th princess. Our young miss met an old man this morning, and after that she went out in the mid-afternoon via the back door. And she refused to tell us where she's going. Till now she had yet to return. This servant is very worried, and I was just preparing to go out and look for her. As Kai Wei was saying these, she was already weeping mountains of tears in her heart. Woo, 3rd miss, this servant had told a lie for the very first time because of you. If 7th princess were to find out, and if I were to die in the manor, you have to help collect my corpse. Her words were half filled with truth and half filled with lies. 7th princess started to fill with doubts. Thousand Treasure Pavilion had encountered trouble and she would definitely be involved in the matter. So naturally she knew that manager's son would come to the valiant Marshall Manor to seek help in addressing the trouble. Even though she didn't see Huang Yueli at Thousand Treasure Pavilion at that time, but if she were to slip away from the back door, then it was possible that her men would probably not have seen it. Could it be that Thousand Treasure Pavilion had gotten into trouble, and when Huang Yueli heard the news, she escaped due to fright? Kai Wei lowered her head as she felt 7th princess's stinging vision as her heart continued to pound hard. Just as 7th princess was hesitating, a sharp voice suddenly came from the entrance of the manor. 7th princess, don't listen to the words of the cheap servant, she must be lying to you. 3rd miss is definitely somewhere within the manor. 2nd miss had sent someone to watch all the exits of the manor. She didn't leave this place at all. Hearing that, Kai Wei lifted her head and immediately recognized the person who had rushed into the manor. This was the valiant Marshall Manor's old housekeeper, and he had always been most loyal to Bai Lu Jing. When Huang Yueli came to the manor to teach them a lesson that day, this old housekeeper took opportunity immediately and disappeared on the first instance, and he is one of the very few who remained safe. No one would have thought that he had returned to Bai Lu Jing and sent someone to monitor the movements of the valiant Marshall Manor. When Kai Wei saw him, she knew immediately that she was going to get into trouble. As expected, 7th princess immediately came around and her brows raised in anger. How dare you, you lowly servant, actually dare to lie to this princess? Men, drag her out and flog her hard. You can also listen on. 2 guards immediately stood out and dragged the ashen-faced Kai Wei out. Li Shuer continued to add on behind her, don't flog her to death. After this princess had dealt with Huang Yueli, that little slut, I will send them both to the dungeon. Kai Wei's eyes rolled upwards and fainted on the spot. Now, no one could stop her. Li Shuer furiously rushed to the backyard, and at the same time, she commanded the guards and servants who she had brought along to search everywhere. Very soon, her men had searched the entire manor. The guard leader reporting to 7th princess, there are no signs of the 3rd miss in the manor's rooms. But in the backyard, there seems to be an array set up in the little courtyard entrance. Our men attempted several times to open the door but were all repelled. Li Shuer sneered, Bai Ruoli is definitely hiding in there. Set up an array. Could she be in closed-door cultivation? This is very interesting. If I were to rush in while she's in closed-door cultivation, will she enter the state of qi deviation? Yes, your subordinate also thinks so. Let's go, this princess will now go and whisk her out. Li Shuer brought her men and reached the boundary of the array, and there, they found another problem. That was, the array that Huang Yueli had set up. She had never encountered it before, so she had no way to break through it. But she had her own methods. Li Shuer immediately gathered all the guards and surrounded the little courtyard, and got all of them to attack the array. No matter how advanced an array was, the energy level were derived from the crystals, and once the energy had been used up, it would lose its effectiveness. Hence, as long as the power was strong enough, it was possible to use brute force to break apart an array. Even if the power was not strong enough, if they persisted unremittingly in their attacks, they were also able to use up the energy from the crystals. Li Shuer was planning on this method. From what she saw, Valiant Marshal Manor did not have any array master. So even if there was an array, its power shouldn't be that strong. For those guards to attack together, she deduced that it should break down within a few attempts. However, out of her expectations, even though her guards had surrounded the array and continuously attacked it from day till night, they were not able to break down the array at all. Li Shuer frowned and started feeling anxious. This is too freaky. Could this array be left down from Bai Lu Feng? How could it be so solid? Men, go to the Crown Prince and borrow all of his golden scaled guards. Before day breaks, I must break down this array and drag the little slut out. A total of 2 small teams of golden scaled guards were deployed and all of them surrounded the array that Huang Yueli set up and attacked it through the night. It was only at the break of dawn when the array let out a soft, humming sound. Li Shuer had persisted for the entire night and her eyes were starting to turn red. But she had not been willing to leave a single step. She had yet to see Huang Yueli's doom, so how could she give up halfway? The result was the array was finally showing signs of breakdown. She immediately jumped for joy. Quick, keep up the good work. This array is going to break down any time now. Following that, Li Shuer's glance turned sinister. Bai Ruoli, just you wait and see. You made me expend so much effort. When I lay my hands on you, if I don't slowly torture you, it would not appease my hatred. Within the array, the red mist in the entire room was slowly turning lighter and the scorching temperature was slowly descending. The raging energy slowly turned docile as it surrounded Huang Yueli, with her in the middle and in the dark room, it emitted a light red glow. You can also listen on. Little Phoenix, who was resting on the windowsill, suddenly awoke in shock, as he looked towards Huang Yueli's direction with a pleasantly surprised expression. Female devil can really be more perverted. She actually managed to absorb the 7th grade magical beast core. And what's more, it's done within such a short amount of time. From the time that Huang Yueli had crushed the last magical beast core, it had only been a full day. But this speed was extremely shocking. Not only was her absorption speed fast, the minor internal injuries that she had incurred due to the explosive fire-attributed energy was also starting to heal. At this moment, the water in the bathtub had already dried up. Huang Yueli stood up and draped a long robe over her and immediately sat cross-legged on the ground. She absorbed all the energy and directed it to her dantian, flushing through all the meridians in her body, and when all the profound energy exploded, it almost split open all her meridians. Huang Yueli clenched her teeth and persevered, and after the last wave of profound energy died down, she broke through the bottleneck. She had finally, successfully broke through to the 2nd degree realm. Upon seeing that, Little Phoenix could finally rest his heart at ease. His master should have successfully advanced. However, even though she had successfully advanced, but Huang Yueli didn't stop there. Her flame spirit physique was like a vortex that absorbs fire-attributed profound energy, and it swept in all the surrounding profound energy, and the energy consolidated within her dantian had not stopped impacting her meridians. Huang Yueli felt that she could not stop herself, and under the impact of the profound energy, she continued to advance. Advance further. Defensive profound realm 1st level. 2nd level. 3rd level. Just like the previous advancement, she easily broke through several small realms. The minute she broke through the defensive profound realm 4th level, her process gradually started to slow down. Because at this crucial moment, a sudden change happened. An eerie hum started to sound. A carved inscription array pattern outside the study room suddenly revealed itself. The entire room started to shake along with it. Little Phoenix raised his head and asked questioningly, "What happened? Is it because the energy emitted from the crushed magical beast core was too much, so it's causing this array to collapse soon?" But before he could come out with a conclusion, another hum blared. This round, the noise was more intense than the previous, and the tremor within the room had increased. Hum. 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 The tremors and noise continuously sounded, and the rays from the array pattern kept flashing and became weaker and weaker. Little Phoenix knew something was not right and quickly flew to the window sill as he looked outwards. At one glance, his big mauve eyes grew rounder and his chubby face turned pale. What the, such a thing is really happening? Female devil, someone is attacking your array. And from the looks of it, your array is not going to last any longer. However, there wasn't any trace of fluster on Huang Yueli's face. Truth be told, she looked exactly the same as earlier. Her eyes were tightly shut and her hands were folded in front of her chest, as she had on a peaceful expression while she led the profound energy within her body. The movement of the profound energy was extremely smooth and within a short while, she broke through another level. Defensive Profound Realm 4th level. Just as she broke though that instance, another intense tremor came through. Little Phoenix's expression looked really bad, a worried and helpless face looked, from the window to Huang Yueli, totally not knowing what he should do. You can also listen on. The array collapsing was only a matter of time. Looking at the severity of the tremors, it would probably not last much longer. However, it was a crucial timing for Huang Yueli's advancement. All the effort that she had put in for the past few days was all for this short amount of time now. She must put all her efforts at this moment to break through. Otherwise, the excessive fire-attributed profound energy within her body may reverse and backflow into her dantian. When that happened, the only result would bound to be either severely injured or even worse, death. That was why Little Phoenix didn't dare to make a single sound to remind her. Even if it was only a tiny speck of disturbance that would cause her attention to be diverted, it would not only cause her advancement to fail, it would also result in backlash and causing her to suffer from internal injury. As the array pattern grew weaker, Little Phoenix was burning with anxiety as he kept talking to and fro the window, praying inside his heart. Female devil, you must put all your efforts into it. Let's hope your array would be able to hold on a little longer, at least until you have successfully completed all your advancement. Huang Yueli kept her eyes shut as the profound energy within her kept swirling around. Defensive Profound Realm 5th level. In between the rumbles and tremors, she had advanced to another level. In actual fact, she wasn't totally unaware of what was happening on the outside. On the contrary, she was brimming full of profound energy, her soul trace powered up along with the brimming energy within her, hence it became much sharper and powerful than usual. Hence, from the first time the array was being attacked, she had already felt it. However, the attack power was initially minutely small, which wouldn't pose any damage to the array, so she didn't bother to pay any attention to it. But a few hours later, the attack power suddenly grew stronger, and it caused a substantial loss of energy to the array. But Huang Yueli had already entered the critical timing for her advancement, hence she could not stop the process at all. No matter what happened, she must complete the advancement first. Huang Yueli was an experienced practitioner and knew perfectly well that the current situation she was facing. Instead of being anxious, she was even calmer than usual. Since she was unable to change anything now, then her only choice would be to gather all the energy and try her best to speed up the advancement process. Unnecessary feelings such as anxiety or uneasiness would only cause her heart to be disturbed and affect her advancement speed, which would be the fatal blow. Her heart was as tranquil as water. No matter how powerful the brute force was on the outside, she sat quietly without looking sideways and silently collected her thoughts to enter a self-transcending state. Very quickly, she broke through again. Defensive Profound Realm 6 level. Defensive Profound Realm 7 level. The cultivation level of Huang Yueli at the current moment had impressively surpassed the Crown Prince's peak. When Little Phoenix saw this, he was dazzled. If that arrogant and despotic Bairuoqi found out that the number one genius, Crown Prince of the South Yu Kingdom, whom she longed to be married to, that his cultivation level was even lower than the trash that she had always looked down on, what would she think? As for the narcissistic Crown Prince, who had wanted to take in his mistress as a concubine, he should just see his own reflection in his own puddle of piss to see which stalk of scallion or garlic he was. At his age, his cultivation could not even be compared to his 14-year-old mistress. What's more, although Huang Yueli's advancement speed had somewhat lessened, but without a doubt, she was still continuing on the advancement. Defensive Profound Realm 8 level. At the same moment when she broke through, a huge boom echoed from the outside of the array. All the array patterns lit up at the same time and almost immediately, it vanished. The array had collapsed. You can also listen on. Following the collapse of the array, raucous noise spread out from the surroundings. A large group of people rushed into the little courtyard. Little Phoenix knew that if a little child like himself were to appear now, it would seem extremely weird, and hurriedly turned back into a little bird as he flew upwards and hid in a hurry. Besides that, he also made the little vulture hide behind a flower pot. Seventh Princess led her men and strode into Huang Yueli's courtyard, directly entering the study room. Just as she reached the entrance, she felt a scorching breath blowing against her face. It was obvious that the person inside was indeed cultivating behind closed doors and most probably had already reached an extremely crucial moment. On seeing this, Seventh Princess was both glad and envious. Glad because she felt that she had come at the right timing, which was such a coincidence. If the little slut was currently in the crucial moment of advancement and she taught her a lesson at this point, Huang Yueli would probably turn into trash. This was really timely help from heavens. Envious was because Huang Yueli's innate gift was really too great. She could actually advance again after such a short amount of time. Crown Prince had mentioned that she was already at Qi Profound Realm 9 level. Then this round's advancement, was it to break through to the Defensive Profound Realm? At such a young age, and she was already a second-stage practitioner. Even at Celestial Light Academy, the #1 academy in the South Sky region where she was currently studying, there weren't many such prodigies. Unfortunately, no matter how much of a genius this lass was, it was useless because she had fallen into her clutches today. Consider it as her bad luck. Anyway, in future, there wouldn't be a genius like her anymore. Furthermore, it will save her efforts. If the Seventh Princess was to personally deal with her, she would only dare to fix her up and not dare to kill her, just because if her second royal brother had not casted Huang Yueli aside, there was a chance that he may come back for revenge. The situation now was good because if Huang Yueli was crippled or even leading to death because her advancement was being interrupted, this would not be considered as a direct hit from her. So in future, if she wanted to deny, there would always be a way to do so. As Seventh Princess thought of this, she was extremely pleased as she walked in. Bairuoli, what big guts you have, seeing this princess's arrival, you still dare to continue to cultivate. Aren't you going to quickly come and greet me? Huang Yueli knew she was nearby, but she didn't make a single move. Just a bit more, she just needed a bit more time and she would be able to break through to the Defensive Profound Realm 9 level. Seventh Princess saw that she didn't show any response and couldn't help but gave a chilling snigger. Looks like you're intentionally ignoring this princess. Just a valiant martial manners, miss. You dare to ignore this princess. How should you be punished? Men, take her down now. Li Shuer knew she was at the crucial moment of breakthrough and wasn't able to talk. However, Li Shuer knew from the start that she would not be able to say a single word and was just trying to pin a crime on her. As her hand waved, the two guards behind her immediately responded and prepared to walk over to capture their prey. Li Shuer's face showed a gleeful smile as she waited to see the pathetic expression on Huang Yueli's face. Who knew? The guards had only took 2 steps before they gave out a sound, and following that, they sprawled onto the ground. What happened? Li Shuer frowned and turned around displeased. However, just at the moment when she had turned her head, she caught sight of a bundle of fire ray flash past. Following that was a fit of acute pain. Ah! So hot. So painful. What was that? What exactly was that? Li Shuer covered her face with her hands and screeched out loudly, squatting down. Little Phoenix ducked his head and hid back onto the top of the window ledge. He had wanted to stop the 7th princess earlier when he realized something was amiss, and in desperation, he breathed out a bundle of true phoenix flames and it sprayed directly onto Li Shuer's face. You can also listen on. True phoenix flames was not any ordinary flame. Li Shuer screeched as she used her clothes to extinguish the flame but was not able to make it go out. All the guards could not be bothered with Huang Yueli and had all crowded around in bid to extinguish the fire on Li Shuer. It went on for quite some time before several water-attributed golden-scaled guards worked together to put their profound skills to use, then were they able to extinguish the fire. By now, the skin on Li Shuer's face had already been burnt and the surface had been filled with potholes and looked extremely dreadful. Li Shuer didn't need to use a mirror to know that she already looked terrifying, so she was even more enraged than before. She furiously shouted, "What on earth happened? What was that thing by the side? Pull it out quickly." Little Phoenix used its small size to its advantage in flapping its wings. He secretly went one round and hid himself inside a white jade pen container. A bunch of guards searched the entire study room but was not able to locate it. However, they found the little vulture. Little vulture received Huang Yueli's order and immediately rushed out. Flapping its wings, giving out whistling cries, it rushed towards the 7th princess's direction. Little vulture itself had the strength of a 3rd-tier magical beast. The strength of its body and attack power was extremely huge. The only thing lacking was its parents were not by its side while it was growing up. So although it was still young, it did not even know the basics of the innate ability of the white-winged golden-crested vultures. In this way, its potential was not able to be displayed. Even so, for it to go against this bunch of 2nd-stage practitioners, it was still a big threat. Little Vulture pecked on various people within the crowd and unexpectedly, the guards were not able to respond in time before they were already knocked down on their backs as several people were pecked on their faces as it was flowing with blood. However, Little Vulture was still a magical beast. Against a bunch of experienced practitioners, it was still in a disadvantageous position. After the chaotic situation had somewhat settled down, a group of golden-scaled guards made a simultaneous frontal and rear attack and managed to surround the Little Vulture. Little Vulture threw itself to the left and the right but were subsequently blocked. Anxiety took over and it was chirping for help as it turned its head to find the Little Phoenix for help. Little Phoenix played dead in the pencil container as it sent out a telepathic message to the Little Vulture, "Zhao Kaya, stop calling out for help. Your big brother is currently unable to save himself, so I've left you to be my scapegoat. Take care of yourself. In future when we meet outside, let's pretend that we don't know each other." Although he said that, Little Phoenix was still feeling extremely anxious. Little Vulture had fallen into the hands of the enemy and what was worse was nothing could stop the 7th princess from interrupting Huang Yueli and she could immediately make Huang Yueli suffer from heavy injuries and throw up blood. Li Shuer also realized this and on the burnt and swollen face, she gave out a devious smile. "It's just a stinking bird. Very good. This evening, I shall shed all your feathers and make you into stewed vulture for Heavenly Father and Mother to enjoy." Your Highness is brilliant. The guards immediately licked her boots. Li Shuer sneered coldly as she casted her glance towards Huang Yueli. Go. Capture by Ruoli for this princess now. This time, there should be nothing to block your way. But for safety's sake, all of you go together. Whoever captures her first, this princess will reward you with 1,000 taels. Upon hearing the reward, those guards who had been covered in dirt and grime from the attacks of the little vulture immediately recovered their energy, and as they responded positively with a yes, they sprang towards Huang Yueli. Little Phoenix used its wings to cover its face as it cried mournfully in its heart. Goner, goner, the female devil is a goner this time. You can also listen on. However, just at the instant when the guards were pouncing towards Huang Yueli, a blinding red ray burst out from Huang Yueli, who had been sitting in a lotus position. The ray was extremely dazzling, and in an instant, no one was able to open their eyes. Everyone subconsciously blocked their eyes, and some of them couldn't help but shed tears. It took quite some time before the blinding ray gradually weakened. Li Shuer was the first to respond as the expression on her face changed. Damn it, this slut actually managed to advance successfully. Why is her luck so good? Damn it. What are you guys still staring into empty space for? Quickly captured this little slut. A few guards rubbed their eyes and immediately they turned over and pounced towards Huang Yueli's direction. Huang Yueli's eyes were originally shut tight, but at this moment, she suddenly opened her eyes and beneath it manifested a cold glare. The guards had not been able to touch her yet as they felt a surge of exploding profound energy sweeping towards them. Some of them were already flying out by this surge of power as they spat out blood in mid-air. Blood from mid-air drew out an arc as it spilled along the way. It was only after they crashed into the wall of the study room and making a huge dent in the wall before they fell onto the ground. The event that had happened was too sudden and was completely not following the normal trail of thoughts. At that moment, everyone was stunned. The entire study room was dead silent. Li Shuer was stunned momentarily before her brows were raised in anger as she furiously retorted, "By Ruoli, you actually dared to hurt this princess's guards, what punishment should you deserve?" Huang Yueli swept her a glance before she frowned and replied, "Who are you?" Li Shuer fumed, "By Ruoli, what act are you playing? We had not met for barely a year and you're pretending not to know this princess. No matter how you pretend, don't even think about escaping the crime of profanity." Huang Yueli innocently replied, "I really don't know you. Don't believe me, ask my servants in my household. Such an ugly person like you, normally I won't even let them enter the manor. What would happen if you scare the little kids? That would be bad." Li Shuer was taken aback and she realized that her face had been burnt from a bundle of flame from God knows where, so she had a horrifying face now. Although practitioners may suffer injuries on their faces, but the difference between them and normal people are they tend to recover much faster than non-practitioners. But she still had to wear this ugly ghost-like face for quite a bit of time. She was one of the top beauties in the South Yu Kingdom and was the idol of many prestigious young masters. So every day before she leaves her room, she would carefully dress herself up and there hadn't been a single instance where she was ever so ugly. When she thought of this, Li Shuer's rage intensified. It was all this little slut's fault. She really deserved to die 10,000 times. Li Shuer angrily retorted, "By Ruoli, isn't this all you're doing? If it wasn't for you who used such a sinister method to hurt this princess's face, would I need to look like this now? Your methods are so sinister, it's no wonder you're a venomous woman." Huang Yueli's lips curled into a smile, treating her rage as nothing. She calmly seated herself on the seat of the host and casually lifted up a pot of water as she poured herself a cup of water and slowly drank it. "I say, this is my home. You're the one who unfathomably came over and you're trying to pin the blame on my head for your God knows where face injury came from. What does it have to do with me? Are you a swindler who came to swindle money? And you still dare to claim that you're a what princess? With such messy hair and dirty face, with the attitude of a shrewd shouting abuse in the streets, you're no different from a roadside female beggar. Still dare to claim you're a princess? Are you here to make a fool of yourself? You can also listen on. Just from one look at the wound on Li Shuer's face, and Huang Yueli already knew that it must be the doing of Wang Kai. In her heart, she secretly gave that little thing a thumbs up, but her face showed an expression of being slandered as she taunted Li Shuer disdainfully. As expected, Seventh Princess was infuriated by her and could not say a single word. Outrageous! Seventh Princess is the legal child of our Empress, and the blood sister of the Crown Prince. Their status are of noble birth. Who are you to babble gibberish and besmirch them? Seventh Princess's guards were unable to see her being besmirched and retorted sternly. Huang Yueli showed an enlightened expression. So you're the Seventh Princess. As I was saying, you must be my second sister's friend. No wonder you also like to paint your face in a gaudy look. Is this year's fashion? Li Shuer almost spat out blood, and as she ferociously stared daggers at Huang Yueli, and finally she snapped. By Ruoli, you're simply seeking death. Do you think that you've just advanced and this princess can't do anything to you? Humph, this princess shall let you see the difference in level between you and a real second-degree realm practitioner. Saying that, she pulled out a long snake-shaped sword from her waist and stabbed towards Huang Yueli's direction. Li Shuer was the core disciple of the Celestial Light Academy, and she had already advanced to the second-degree realm in the previous year. Right now, her cultivation was currently at the defensive profound realm 3rd level. She totally could not tell that Huang Yueli's advancement had directly reached the defensive profound realm 9 level. The reason was because at the Peach Blossom Banquet that was held more than 10 days ago, Huang Yueli had just reached the Qi Profound Realm 9 level. This was something that was known to all because she had managed in such a short amount of time to leap across an entire realm. This was not just freakish but rather to talk big without a manuscript. Li Shuer had naturally thought that Huang Yueli had just broken through the Qi Profound Realm and advanced to the Defensive Profound Realm 1st level. Even so, she felt that Huang Yueli's luck was just too good since she was able to break through to the second-degree realm at such a young age. Her future was limitless. Even among the 6th-grade talents, she had outstanding luck and strength. It was exactly because of this that Li Shuer wanted to use this opportunity to throttle her future threat in the cradle before it was too late. Li Shuer's sword dance was like a breeze as the snake sword shone out some chilling shimmer as it caused one to be dazzled by it. As a direct disciple of a 4th-ranked armament master, Li Shuer's long sword was outstanding and it was a 4th-tier lower-grade armament. This was extremely rare for a second-degree realm practitioner to be holding on to such an armament. Even if it was the Crown Prince whose cultivation was much higher than his own sister, he was not able to afford a 4th-tier armament. Even when he wanted to purchase a set of 3rd-tier profound armor in the previous auction, he was severely played around by Huang Yueli. Not only was the sword an excellent item, the swordplay that she was exhibiting was a profound skill that only the core disciples of the Celestial Light Academy could learn, the Shadow Snake swordplay. Once exhibited, its might was astounding. In that one instance, it had completed 18 thrusts. And within that 18 thrusts, only one thrust was a killer move, the remaining 17 thrusts were just fake moves. Once one had been blinded by the shimmer of the sword causing a mistake in the judgment, one's throat would be strapped by the sword. Huang Yueli's eyes shone as she smiled. This profound skill is rather extraordinary. The sword should be refined specially for this profound skill, right? Not a simple task. Finally, I have met a practitioner with some qualifiable skills in the South Yu Kingdom. This swordplay certainly looks impressive. You can also listen on. Although she said such words, but the expression on her face didn't display any signs of distress. Even while she was commenting on Li Shui's swordplay, it felt like she was a renowned senior giving pointers to her junior. Li Shui was fuming with rage between gritted teeth after she heard such fleeting comments, cursing Huang Yueli inside her heart. Pretense. Continue to pretend some more. She coldly sneered, your talking seems clear and logical. If you have the capability, try to avoid my thrust. Looking at you standing at the same spot, aren't you unable to avoid it? Take my move. The distance between them were not too far apart, and as Li Shui continued with her swordplay, the snake's sword had already extended its reach as it thrusted towards Huang Yueli's chest. Huang Yueli didn't avoid it, and even her feet didn't shuffle a single step. Li Shui's heart lighted up. This little slut could only use her mouth and talk. In actual fact, she didn't have enough ability to avoid the move, simply looking for death. Today, she shall let her know her power. Li Shui's smile slowly spread across her face, but at the next moment, the smile that congealed against that reddish-black face looked extremely hilarious. Because when her sword thrusted to a position just 3 inches before it could reach Huang Yueli, it totally stopped in its tracks. Li Shui lowered her head and found Huang Yueli had stretched out 2 long slender fingers, firmly holding her snake sword in between her 2 fingers. Li Shui turned pale from the overwhelming shock, as she had never expected Huang Yueli to be able to stop her long sword. She had, in that instance, struck out 18 thrusts. A normal same-level practitioner would not be able to see clearly, what's more, predict accurately which thrust was the killer move. Even if one had predicted accurately, that one thrust had been instilled with the full strength of her profound energy, the sharp penetrating thrust was not something that could be stopped. Unless the other party exceeded her by several realm levels, otherwise, who would dare to use their fingers to block this move? It was absolutely certain that all her fingers would be shaved off on the spot. Li Shui would never believe this. However, the fact was placed right in front of her eyes, so she didn't have any choice to not believe it. Her hand subconsciously increased the strength and impounded her entire profound energy into the sword, hoping that it would strike towards Huang Yueli. Alas, no matter how she tried, the snake sword was firmly gripped in between Huang Yueli's hand. The 2 slender and fair fingers, skin as white and delicate like snow, looked like it had never required to handle any heavy workload. But these seemingly powerless fingers, at this moment, seemed to contain 10 million pounds of strength, totally indestructible. Li Shui was now experiencing true fear. She realized that the young lady standing in front of her, whom she had treated like trash, held tremendous power, and it was she herself who was unable to compare with her accomplishments. Li Shui's wrist turned and gave up thrusting inwards. Instead, she was using her strength to pull back the sword outwards. Now, she did not harbor any further thoughts of thrusting Huang Yueli. At her, she only wanted to take back her sword. This was a 4th-tier profound armament, she absolutely cannot lose it. No matter how much her master valued her, it was impossible that he would refine another one for her. However, how would Huang Yueli let her claim back the sword just like that? Li Shui tried hard to pull back the sword, even to the extent of using all her strength until her face flushed through and through. However, she was still unable to pull it out. She spoke out embitteredly, "By Ruoli, let go. Are you intending to snatch this princess's sword?" Huang Yueli smiled lightly, "7th princess, please don't distort the truth deliberately. This sword was sent to my hands willingly by you, and now you're regretting it. Keep on dreaming. You can also listen on." Saying that, Huang Yueli's wrist shook. Li Shui felt a strong wave of profound energy emitting from the sword blade, and her 2 arms were jolted till it was sore and tingling with numbness. Unable to bear with the pain, she was unable to hold on to the long sword. Following that, her entire body fell heavily outwards as she spat out a mouthful of blood. "7th princess. Your Highness, what happened to you?" The guards had not been able to react, and it was until Li Shuer crashed against the corner of the wall before they regained their senses as they hurriedly pounced over to check on her condition. Li Shuer coughed in a hoarse voice as dull pains were felt from her chest. Following every cough she made, bloody foam kept spilling out from the corners of her mouth. She wanted to lift her hand and wipe the blood stains from the corners of her mouth, but the minute she moved, she realized that her 2 arms were painful like hell as it felt extremely heavy and she was unable to lift it up. She lowered her head to take a look and realized that her 2 arms were not able to straighten and it could only droop downwards. At that very moment, her eyes opened wide as her heart entered a state of shock and fear. Just at that instant that Huang Yueli shook her off, that powerful profound energy completely shattered the bones in her arms and it had broken into chunks, totally unable to be used. Li Shuer suffered an extreme amount of pain as she almost shed tears from it. Moreover, something else made her even more angry. Huang Yueli held her precious snake-shaped long sword, and after she looked at it against the light, her forehead creased into a frown as she said unsatisfyingly, "This sword is refined is such a lousy way. The fusion intensity of the materials is way too low. It seems like the armament master's handling power of material was done rather badly, and this side here is slightly crooked. Looks like the skill towards the shape-forming stage at the end is way below quality. TSK, this must be a junior who had just rose to a 4th-tier armament master, using this type of workmanship as practice material. This simply cannot be shown on stage." Li Shuer fumed with anger till her eyes turned red. This sword was her precious baby. It was something that her master had personally refined, a 4th-tier armament master's works. If it was brought out in an auction house, the amount would be at a heavenly cost, and she was the envy of so many young practitioners. The result, however, was criticized by Huang Yueli to be totally worthless, as though it was a piece of rubbish which was to be thrown away directly. What's more, after Huang Yueli had finished her ridicule, feeling that it was a great pity as she shook her head, in the end, she actually kept away that sword. Li Shuer stared daggers at her with her eyes till it was almost fuming with fire. Since she didn't take a fancy to the sword, why didn't she return it back to her? She acted like it was such a difficult task for her to accept the sword. Wasn't it a piece of trash? Why did she have to keep it? As though she had heard the thoughts in Li Shuer's mind, Huang Yueli threw her a fleeting glance and replied, "Even though it's a piece of trash, even if I were to return it to the furnace, I won't be able to save it. However, it was after all a piece of your goodwill. If I were to reject the 7th princess's gift, it would seem that I'm disrespectful, and if I'm pinned with this crime, wouldn't I get into big trouble?" This was throwing Li Shuer's earlier threats right back into her face. Li Shuer felt that the wounds on her face had gotten even more painful, as though someone had slapped her viciously on the face. What type of status did she have? She had always been held in the palms of others since she was young. And because she had an innate talent for becoming an armament master, even if she were to go to the Sky Cloud City and enter the Celestial Light Academy, she was still able to be in the same standing as though she was back in her own country. This was her first time that she was being humiliated viciously. Li Shuer gritted her teeth and couldn't wait to tear Huang Yueli apart with her own hands. But too bad she was not even able to climb up on her own. You can also listen on. Li Shuer stared fiercely at Huang Yueli, and every single word hissed out from her clenched teeth. "All of you attack. Capture this little slut. All of you golden-scaled guards attack together. Whoever managed to capture her, I'll ask my master to refine a profound armament for him personally." The people whom Li Shuer had led here were not only her own guards. The mass included quite a number of golden-scaled guards who had been deployed from Li Majuan. Initially, these golden-scaled guards' hearts were pounding hard when they saw Li Shuer being easily defeated by Huang Yueli, and they didn't dare to attack. However, the bait that Li Shuer threw out was simply too tempting. Who on heavens doesn't know that Li Shuer's master was a fourth-tier armament master? A profound armament personally refined by a fourth-tier armament master, such a great thing was something that they would not even dare to dream of having. Now that such a large meat pie had fallen onto their heads, whoever doesn't catch it would be the biggest idiot on earth. For cultivating practitioners, their only aim was to strive towards higher heights. If an opportunity knocks on your door and you don't grab it, then there's no chance to break through at all. So upon hearing that, all the golden-scaled guards' eyes flashed a tint of greediness as they looked at one another before they moved towards where Huang Yueli was. All of them had the same idea in their minds. From the looks of it, Huang Yueli's power had indeed gone out of their calculations and could not be at the ordinary first-degree realm. Her battle power should have exceeded by several little small realms. If they were to go up against her one by one, they would probably not be Huang Yueli's match at all. But their biggest advantage was the huge number of people they had. If they were to consolidate their attacks together, against the single Huang Yueli, they might not need to struggle that much. Besides, the golden-scaled guards were totally different from those trashy guards. The golden-scaled guards were all practitioners in the second-degree realm. As for Huang Yueli, who had just broken through to the second-degree realm, so the difference in their abilities were originally not too huge. Including the fact that they had so many people, how would they not able to capture her? With this thinking set in their minds, the golden-scaled guards didn't hesitate further. All of them drew out their swords and outdoing the others to unleash their attacks towards Huang Yueli. Li Shuer lay crippled on the ground, but her eyes were glued on Huang Yueli, just waiting to see how she was going to be defeated and dragged in front of her to see her pathetic sight. Although she was not able to beat Huang Yueli personally, but that was because she had slighted her enemy earlier. With so many men charging together, would that little slut be able to fly up into the sky to avoid all of these? In actual fact, Huang Yueli didn't have the ability to fly into the sky or burrow herself into the ground, but she had the ability to defeat the opponent with her outstanding power directly. A group of fiendish golden-scaled guards charged towards her, but they were not even able to touch the corners of her sleeve. As Huang Yueli looked at this bunch of golden-scaled guards, the corners of her mouth gave out a chilling laughter. Overestimating your own strength. She did some footwork and turned her body. Her pose was just like a demon as she turned a ghostly figure. The golden-scaled guards' eyes were dazzled as they lost all trace of Huang Yueli's trail. Following that, they felt an irresistible huge force coming from their backs, and before they could react, they had already been struck flying out. Bam! 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 The sound of impact was continuously heard. The golden-scaled guards who were thought to be unexcelled were all flying out within a blink of an eye, and all of them were facing down as their foreheads crashed heavily onto the ground, blood spilling out. Not long after, no one was left standing in the entire room except for Huang Yueli. Li Shuer was completely stunned by this scenario as she turned wide-eyed as though she had seen a ghost. Huang Yueli had finished handling everyone as she slowly turned and walked over. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli stood up and clapped her hands, calling out, "Men! Why isn't there anyone around at all?" Most of the valiant martial manners guards and servants were injured by the men whom were brought over by the seventh princess, and they were blocked at the entrance, so they could only watch from afar. They had initially thought Huang Yueli would definitely come to a dead end this time, but who knew that even under the attack of so many golden-scaled guards, Huang Yueli easily ironed out the difficulties. Looking at the groaning golden-scaled guards laying all over the ground, everyone's respect towards Huang Yueli rose to newer heights. Upon hearing her summon, all the servants dragged their injured bodies, limped and hobbled over to show themselves in front of their third Mississippi. To be able to follow such a strong master, in future, they would be able to bask in envy. "Third Miss, what commands do you have?" "This servant will handle it properly." "This servant can also do the same, please tell us your commands, Third Miss." Everyone crowded over, all talking together to promote their own services. Huang Yueli nodded and pointed to two people, you, and you, come over here. She passed the bottle of medication in her hands to them and commanded, the both of you bring along some men and feed the medication to the guards that the seventh princess had brought over. One person shall take one pill. After ensuring that they have taken the pill, drag all of them and the seventh princess out and using a carriage, send them back to the palace. Do you hear me clearly? Yes, loud and clear. Third Miss, please rest assured, I guarantee that I will complete this task. Both of them accepted and very quickly they organized the team to carry out their task. Those guards who were injured by Huang Yueli basically had fractures everywhere and were unable to get up on their own. Even their meridians were damaged so they didn't have any ability to resist. The few people followed Huang Yueli's instructions and first fed them with the pill before dragging them out one by one. Finally, there was only the seventh princess left in the study room who had yet to be dragged out. The few of them returned to the entrance of the study room and looked inside while asking for further instructions. Third Miss, this. Seventh princess too, that, he hemmed and hawed, feeling embarrassed to say out the words, dragged the seventh princess out. After all, she was a respectable royal princess. Under the eyes of those born as slaves, her existence was extremely valuable. Just the thought of being rough with her made many feel jittery in their hearts. Huang Yueli, however, did not have any of these misgivings. She waved her hand and replied, that's right, drag her away too. If you don't hurry, the medication in the princess's body might just start to take effect now. Just at the same moment, Li Shuer already could feel the strange feeling spreading within her body. She only felt the temperature in her body raising higher and higher, her skin becoming more sensitive and itchy and her face gradually flushing red. It was as if a scorching heat from within was spreading from her heart all the way to all her four limbs. She bit her lips, trying hard to suppress the uncomforting feeling in her body and stared at Huang Yueli furiously. You, what on earth did you feed me? What was that thing? Huang Yueli's brows raised as she replied, actually, you have already guessed it, isn't it? It's exactly what you think it is. What? Why, what did you say? How do you know what I'm thinking? Impossible, you dare to feed me that type of medication. Take what kind of medication? Huang Yueli asked laughingly. Li Shuer's eyes rimmed red but she was not able to voice out a single word. Huang Yueli lowered her head and whispered by the side of her ear with a laugh, your guess is right, what I fed you is indeed the pill that will bring a person to heat, and your guards had all taken the same pill. You can also listen on. You. Li Shuer was wide-eyed as her face drained cleanly of all traces of blood. Even though she had already guessed it, but hearing the words estrus pill coming out clearly from Huang Yueli's mouth, she was still unable to believe it. Following that, a deep fear arose from the bottom of her heart. Huang Yueli actually dared to do this. And the scariest part was not only did she feed her this medication, she also fed the same medication to so many guards. And she's going to place her in the same carriage to be sent back to the palace. This. Won't she be able to protect her chastity? A mouthful of blood rushed up from Li Shuer's chest and unable to suppress it further, she spat it out. By Ruoli, you dare to do such an outrageous act. If you dare to ruin my innocence, even if I become a ghost, I will not forgive you. Li Shuer was conceited over her outstanding status and innate skill and had always wanted to get acquainted to several reputable direct descendants disciples in Sky Cloud City. Although the amount of suitors she had were plentiful, but if she were to lose her chastity and if anyone found out about it, then her hopes of marrying into any powerful or reputable aristocrats would be dashed. Huang Yueli laughingly replied, Seventh Princess, what are you saying? You tried to interrupt my advancement because you wanted my life. I only want your chastity, so comparing the two, I'm much kinder than you. Li Shuer's eyes almost shot out streaks of fire. Under her ashamed and resentful glare, Huang Yueli chortled gleefully as she slowly opened her mouth to add on. What's more? Don't say that I didn't give you any chances. The speed of the medication that I had fed you with doesn't take effect immediately. So to say, if the speed of the carriage is fast enough, perhaps, all of you might not even advance to the last step, and reach the palace in time. If you were to slowly drag on her, chirping non-stop, then perhaps in the middle of the journey, the effect would have taken place. By then, with so many men and only you, if the emperor were to see this scenario, I wonder if he will die from an excess of anger on the spot. When Li Shuer heard this depiction, she almost fainted. No wonder Huang Yueli wanted to stuff her up the carriage and transport her back to the palace. If such a scandal were to be seen by so many people at the palace doors, and if her imperial father and empress were to see this, she wouldn't need to live in this lifetime. Li Shuer's eyes were filled with poisonous grudges as she stared at Huang Yueli. You're such an evil and malicious lunatic, you will die a horrible death. Huang Yueli sneered coldly, that's interesting. When you tried to kill me, why didn't you feel that you're evil and malicious? And now you're trying to act like a pure white lotus. My advice to you is if you dare to come out to mess, there's always a price to pay. Today is your time to slowly pay back your debts. She waved her hand and ordered her men to drag Li Shuer away. Li Shuer kept struggling and pedaled her feet, expressing her unwillingness to get on the carriage. Huang Yueli spoke in a chilling voice. If 7th Princess is not willing to get on the carriage, don't force her to, otherwise she will say we did not treat her with respect. Just wait a little while more. Perhaps after a while more, the medication effects completely take effect on those guards in the carriage. Li Shuer froze when she heard such words. After a long time, her pale lips trembled. By Ruoli, I want. She shut her eyes and clenched her teeth, and using a small voice like a mosquito, she buzzed, I want to get up the carriage. Huang Yueli smiled lightly. What do you want? You're speaking so softly, my hearing isn't that good, so I can't hear you. You can also listen on. Li Shuer was embarrassed to the extreme, but facing a motionless Huang Yueli, she had no choice but to raise the volume of her voice and repeated what she said earlier. Huang Yueli gave a smile which didn't look like a smile. You really deserve to be called the 7th princess, your hobby is really special. You already know that this carriage has many men who had taken thee and still want me to quickly let you get on the carriage. Aren't you being a little too unconstrained? If others were to know about it, the entire South Yu Kingdom's royal family's face will be thrown away by you. Li Shuer's emotions were mixed in between embarrassed and anger, and that type of despondent feeling was simply indescribable. It was obviously Huang Yueli who forced her to say these kind of words and forced her up the carriage, but unexpectedly when the words reached Huang Yueli's mouth, it became totally twisted and had the opposite meaning. If people heard what Huang Yueli said, then they would most probably think that she was a shameless, immoral woman. It had been such a simple thing, to teach Huang Yueli a lesson on behalf of her brother and her best friend, but Li Shuer had never dreamt that the results would end up in her losing so badly, to the extent of her reputation being shred to pieces. She recalled that before she came over, Bai Ruoqi constantly reminded her, don't even look down on this third sister of mine. Ever since she committed suicide the last time, she seemed to have changed into a different person. Her thoughts are deep and frightening. If you were to belittle her, then you'd fall into her trap easily. Li Shuer had casually acknowledged it earlier and didn't take it to heart. But now, she really regret her actions for not taking heed. Alas, it was all too late now. Huang Yueli had personally sealed her meridians and got her men to carry her onto the carriage. In front of the carriage was a coachman. When Li Shuer got up the carriage, the coachman followed Huang Yueli's instructions and striking the horsewhip, proceeded towards the direction of the palace. Huang Yueli wanted to join in the fun and exhibited her footworks, following behind the carriage at an casual speed. Not long after the carriage had started on its journey, heavy panting and moaning can be heard from within. Huang Yueli raised her eyebrow and turned her head towards the little bird sapling resting on her shoulder. Wang Kai, make a guess. Have they started doing the deed already? The little phoenix covered its eyes, but since it wasn't covered totally, from the chinks of the feathers, without even blinking, his large watery eyes could be seen staring at the carriage's direction filled with curiosity. Little Phoenix kept stealing peeks and at the same time replied, "Female devil, what deed are you talking about? That deed does it mean? This little lord is such a pure and cute divine magical beast, don't you dare to use your evil thoughts to contaminate me." The corners of Huang Yueli's mouth twitched. This wimpy brat. When he was saying such things, could his eyes first stop to steal glances? Huang Yueli glimpsed at him and intentionally said, "See that little hole at the back of the carriage's window? Shall I help to stuff you inside, so that you can go in and take a look?" Chirp chirp. Chirp chirp. Yes, yes. Little Phoenix excitedly flapped its wing and fluttered. But after the excitement, when he saw the ridicule in Huang Yueli's eyes, he immediately hung its head down weakly. Cough cough, why would this little lord want to do such a thing? Female devil, don't be shameless and try to throw such an innocent person like me into that place. You're so bad. Even Huang Yueli was defeated utterly by this shameless little thing, and remained wordless for a short period of time. By now, the carriage had turned into another street. You can also listen on. The entire journey from Valiant Marshall Manor to the Royal Palace would pass through several busiest streets in the city, and these streets were mainly for commercial use, so traffic was extremely busy and pedestrians were closely woven. When the carriage had arrived at these areas, it could not maintain the previous speed to go as fast as possible, so it could only reduce its speed as it moved slowly, moving and halting every few seconds. However, the minute the carriage decreased its speed, the sounds from within the carriage could be heard visible. ENN, ENN. Ah. Ah, the slight moaning could be heard indistinctly. The pedestrians on the streets were plentiful, and quite a number of them had already noticed the unusual situation in that carriage. They ambiguously turned their heads to look, and following that, discussions in a lowered tone could be heard. Look at that carriage. Those sounds earlier, did it come from that carriage? That's right, it's this carriage. I've heard sounds coming from it for quite a while. Oh my, aren't the people inside too thirsty, so do such an act in the middle of the day at such a busy place? He, a bystander gave a lewd smile, you're all inexperienced. If I were to say, there are several men inside and only one woman. TSK, such heavy taste, what? How can such a thing happen? Isn't that woman being forced to do such a thing? We have to report to the authorities. What's the hurry? The lewd man smiled wretchedly. From the sound of this, it seems that the woman is enjoying herself, we can't be sure that she's not a willing party. A stir started to arouse. Little Phoenix turned his head towards Huang Yueli and asked, "Was I, if that what princess's reputation has gone down in the mud? If she were to hear these, won't she die of anger?" The corners of Huang Yueli's lips curled upwards. Don't worry, she heard it loud and clear. Regarding this, Huang Yueli was very sure. Because the medication that she had given would not make the party lost their rationale. Instead, they remained clear-headed, but they were unable to control their actions and feelings, so the effect of this medication was extremely useful for tormenting others. Although the levels of the voices of those pedestrians were intentionally lowered, but Li Shuai was after all a second-degree realm practitioner. Her senses were much higher than ordinary people by several folds, so the volume of these voices were absolutely loud and clear to her. The carriage continued on its journey, although the speed was slow, but it eventually passed by this street. Just up in the front was the gate to the royal palace. Just a distance before the carriage reached the main gate, it was stopped. The golden-scaled guards held in their hands long spears and blocked the way in front of the carriage. Who is inside? In front of the royal palace. Why aren't you coming down to report who you are? Although the carriage had stopped, but still no one stepped down. The coachman stopped the carriage, and as though he had done something guilty, he sped away immediately. The golden-scaled guards had not imagined that he would run away so naturally. They didn't thought of stopping him. It was only after he had ran away did the few guards looked at one another in dismay, unclear of the current situation. What's the situation now? Why did he run away? Why aren't the people inside getting down from the carriage? Don't bother so much, go over and take a look. The golden-scaled guards walked towards the carriage, and just a distance away, they heard noises of moaning and panting, and a powerless woman's voice from the carriage. Go away, and don't do this. The few of them grew wide-eyed as they all recovered their senses at the same time. Cow! This carriage. Are they having, heavens, aren't they too shameless? To do such a thing is already too indecent. To think that they actually stopped the carriage in front of the royal palace gate. Isn't this a provocation to the emperor? You can also listen on. Yes, to scorn the emperor, the punishment is extermination of the entire family clan. Quickly drag them down and see who could it be who is so utterly shameless. That's right, drag them off the carriage. Although the golden-scaled guards' expressions depicted a righteous indignation, but in their hearts, they were extremely excited. Such a heavy-tasted living erotic chamber was not seen commonly. Now with such an opportunity, won't they be in a hurry to see it for their eyes, otherwise they'd lost out on it. What's more, if luck is on their side, perhaps they might be able to get a share. Just thinking about this, the golden-scaled guards ran to outbid each other towards the carriage, all eager to see what kind of sexual scenario had happened. When the curtain on the carriage had been pulled open, the man closest to the outside was whisked out immediately. Quickly take a look, take a look. What had this guy been taking aphrodisiac? Look at how excited he is. Even after we have discovered their act, not only did he draw back, he's still fondling there. TSK, alright, what's there to see about men? I want to see the woman inside. His colleague quickly interrupted him. The others concurred, that's right, let's see how the shameless woman looks like. Quick, move your asses. Li Shuai was squashed right on the inside, and on her were many men fondling here and there. Adding on to the fact that her arm was broken, it was very difficult for her to struggle. Even using the profound energy in her body, she was able to utilize a bit of her profound skill to protect herself and had yet to proceed to the last step, but the clothes on her had totally been stripped off in the process of fondling. Heavens know how much advantage she had been taken off. Had this scenario had been seen from outsiders, she could really kill herself. She hurriedly shouted, don't come nearer. All of you, scram. However, the golden-scaled guards couldn't recognize her at all and roared with laughter. Hear this woman, when she's in the act, she didn't feel shameless at all. Now that she's discovered, she's asking us to scram. That's right, obviously a shameless bitch, still pretending to be noble. You've already been played with so many men, just letting us take a few looks, you should consider it as your fortune. As their words become more and more uncouth, Li Shuai's tears started flowing, yet she was unable to rebuta. If she were to claim she was the seventh princess, won't she lost even more face? But if she didn't lay claim to her status and were dragged out naked, that alone would be enough for her to kill herself by banging the wall. Just as she was stuck in a dilemma, a golden-scaled guard who lagged behind lowered his head and took a careful look at the first man who was being dragged down the carriage. Suddenly he shouted in surprise. Weird, this man looks a little familiar. Familiar? What are you saying? Stop disturbing, let's drag that woman out. This guard started to become anxious and said, he really looks familiar. Wait, I recall now. Isn't this Lee C from the 3rd Squadron? Why is he here? Hearing that, someone turned back and took a few more glances, then he froze. That's right, I recall now. He seemed to have gone out with the 7th princess to capture someone. How did he get into such a situation now? The golden-scaled guards immediately felt something was amiss and hurriedly took action and whisked every single person out. Every single person gave them a big shock. Because all the men here were all their colleagues, members of the golden-scaled guards. You can also listen on. The more the golden-scaled guards saw, the more terrified they became. Very soon, all the men in the carriage were pulled down, leaving only Li Shuer in the carriage alone. All the golden-scaled guards who blustered around earlier all fell silent and no one dared to enter to capture the woman. The reason was because a shocking guess arose within their hearts. The shameless woman inside couldn't be the 7th princess, right? This guess was not unreasonable because all the guards who had been dragged down earlier were all without exception those who had been deployed to help 7th princess with some matters today. In the end, all of them had appeared in the carriage, except for the 7th princess, whose whereabouts were unknown. Without a need to think further, the woman in the carriage had a 90% chance that it was her. But how could this be? 7th princess usually looked natural and unrestrained, unless she was such a shameless and wanton woman deep down in her bones. She had dared to commit such audacity within the city. The golden-scaled guards looked at each other in dismay, not knowing what to do next. Huang Yueli hid under a big tree at a distance not far away. When she saw this scenario, her mouth twitched disdainfully. These golden-scaled guards, normally they are so haughty and overbearing, why did they become so terrified at this moment? Such a huge letdown, let me give them a hand. She hooked a small stone under the tree and kicked it. Along the direction of the wind, the stone flew towards the carriage and happened to fall in between the wheel. With a thump, the carriage lost its balance instantly and fell flat towards the direction of the royal palace. As for Li Shuer, who curled up in the carriage, giving a screech, she rolled out from the carriage, and rolled for quite a distance before falling right in front of the golden-scaled guards. The golden-scaled guards looked carefully and all were shocked out of their lives. The woman, in front of their eyes, was totally naked. Her figure was shapely, giving rise to wild and fanciful thoughts. Even though the golden-scaled guards knew she could possibly be the 7th princess, but they were unable to control their line of visions and ogled several glances at her. Those lewd glances almost drove Li Shuer to death. The golden-scaled guard's vision fell onto her face and at this moment, everyone was stunned. 7th princess, Li Shuer was an outstanding beauty, but this woman in front of their eyes had her face filled with bumpy bruises, her face was swollen like a pig head. Was she really the 7th princess? Li Shuer screeched, "What are you looking at? Do you believe that this princess will gorge out your eyes? Quickly remove your clothes and give it to me." This time, her voice was loud and clear and allowed the golden-scaled guard to confirm that this indeed was the 7th princess. One of them hurriedly removed his outer jacket and threw it towards Li Shuer. The rest of them surrounded her, back-facing in a circle to block out the views from the other people so that she could put on the clothes in the human circle. There were some who observed the surroundings and immediately went to clear the scene, and chase away those bystanders who were there to watch the bustling scene. Alas, these series of actions came too late. Because around the doors of the palace, there were several ministers and influential officials moving around. They had already seen this scenario with their own eyes and were gesticulating, even guessed that the naked woman who had just rolled out from the carriage was the emperor's beloved seventh princess. Some palace maids and eunuchs happened to pass by this route, and when they saw such a scenario, they hurriedly entered the palace to report to the emperor. Not long after, the palace door opened and the emperor and empress personally rushed over. You can also listen on. At this moment, Li Shuer had yet to put on the clothes properly. Due to the fact that both her hands could not move and she could not possibly ask the golden-scaled guards to put it on for her, so she could only slowly nudge herself, attempting to shift the clothes onto her body. But this action proved to be too difficult, as it would, time to time, hurt her hand, causing waves of extreme pain. Besides that, the effect of the estrus pill had not fully subsided as heat waves continued to rise, causing her to give out several moaning sounds. The surrounding golden-scaled guards tried hard to endure. If they had not known that the woman behind was a golden-branched jade leaf person whom they could not afford to provoke, they would have lost it and made advances towards her long ago. When the emperor and empress arrived at the scenario, what they saw was this. Li Shuer was scantily dressed, stooping on the ground and constantly making groaning sounds. Her face was filled with wounds and it was difficult to make out her original looks. Empress gave a screech and quickly walked over. When she saw the birthmark on Li Shuer's upper shoulder, she momentarily cried out. Shuer, it's really Shuer. How did you become like this? What happened? My Shuer, mother. Li Shuer saw the empress and immediately all the grievances flowed upwards as her tears started to flow, unable to stop. Both mother and daughter started crying bitterly. However, in the eyes of the emperor, this scenario was far from touching. He only felt a deep sense of shame and a stomach full of fury. Enough, the both of you still dare to cry. The emperor howled angrily and strode over. Li Shuer seldom heard the emperor giving out such a fierce and stern tone and was shocked beyond words momentarily. Her tears stopped flowing as she mumbled, "Imperial father." However, before she could give an explanation, Piak slap fiercely landed on her face. You still know you have an imperial father like me. How dare you openly do such a obscurity with so many guards in front of the palace doors? What's more, you openly roamed the streets in the city. The entire South Yu Kingdom's face had been thrown by you. How could I have such an indecent and immoral daughter like you? Li Shuer was struck dumb. Due to her outstanding innate gift and her beauty, she had always been the apple of the emperor's eyes and had been pampered since young. She had never thought that one day, she would be slapped by her imperial father. However, before she could react, the emperor had already showered down hurls of abuse on her. That tone was obviously filled with disappointment to the extreme. Imperial father, listen to your daughter's explanation. The emperor gnashed his teeth as he hissed, I don't want to hear your explanation. You already did such a shameful thing, what excuse do you have? Li Shuer is now stripped of her princess status and demoted to a commoner. Men, capture her and don't let her step out of the royal palace. When the empress heard these, she shuddered with cold sweat and rushed over to plead for mercy. Your Majesty, your concubine Shuer is not someone who doesn't know her morals. She must not have done this intentionally, please have mercy, your Majesty. When the emperor heard these words, instead of calming down, his fury raged even further. Unintentional, and she had already threw all the royal family's face away. If it was intentionally, wouldn't she already have forgotten about the entire South Yu Kingdom? If you dare to add on one more word, just wait for the imperial edict to be deposed. The emperor was extremely enraged. A legitimate princess hang out with so many guards in a carriage, what an atrocious gossip was this? You can also listen on. Female devil, what's the hurry? Until now, I have yet to see what that lady in nude looks like. Let me watch just a little longer. Otherwise, let's move away slightly further to take a clear look. Ouch! Huang Yueli couldn't stand it any further as she gave him a huge bump on the top of his head. You brat, going astray at such a young age, is that something that you should be looking at? Woo, 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 little Phoenix shrunk his head back, not daring to speak his mind. However, in his heart, he kept thinking that this female devil had thought of such a sinister and vicious plot, but he just wanted to take another look and suffer domestic violence from her. This was practically double standard at its best. Humph, the next time she and Li Moying got intimate, he must open his eyes wide and look to his content. Huang Yueli swept a glance at him. Seeing that he leaned his head back, she guessed what was on his mind. She carried the little Phoenix and placed him back on her shoulder. All right, stop wasting time. We still have pressing matters to see to. Chirp chirp. Pressing matters. Yes. Huang Yueli nodded. Brother Moe had gone to the Thousand Treasure Pavilion since morning and have yet to return. It's simply abnormal for someone like him. Something must have delayed him from coming back, or there could be an accident or something like that, otherwise he won't act in this way. Let's hurry over and take a look. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli brought along the little Phoenix and went straight to Thousand Treasure Pavilion. Thousand Treasure Pavilion's door was wide open, but there weren't any customers. Huang Yueli strode in with big steps and saw the entire lobby in huge mess. All the counters had been pushed over and various medicinal ingredients were scattered on the ground. Some locked cabinets were also smashed open. Signs of a fight were visibly shown on the ground. Besides that, all the employees of the Thousand Treasure Pavilion were spotted having a black eye, as though they had just been attacked by someone. Yet in between these people, there wasn't any sign of Moe or Manager Sunday. Huang Yueli frowned as she grabbed an employee and asked, "Where is Manager Sun? How about Moe? Where have they gone to?" The employee was holding on to his swollen face while groaning in pain, but as he lifted his head, a delicate and attractive face came into his sight. A hint of joy shone in his eyes. He had immediately recognized that she was the valiant Marshall Manor's third miss, and was also their lady boss. Third miss, you're here. That's great, we're saved. Manager Sun is inside calculating what we have left in our reserve. The Crown Prince had led his men here, looting and snatching items in our shop, causing us to suffer from huge losses. Third miss, you're looking for him. Need your humble servant to ask Manager Sun out. Huang Yueli shook her head and replied, "Never mind, let him slowly calculate the damages." How about Moe? Moe. The employee was dumbfounded for a moment before he suddenly realized, "You're referring to the tall and incredible expert? He's simply too powerful. Earlier when the few of us were almost beaten to death by the golden-scaled guards, but when Sir Moe rushed here, he easily took care of all of them. Even the Crown Prince was not able to take even one strike from him." Huang Yueli was totally not surprised by his words. Moe was a 5th-degree realm practitioner, higher than Crown Prince and the rest by a total of 3 realms. To say that he swept all obstacles away at one go was not an exaggeration, even one finger of his could squash them all. Where did he go to after he defeated the Crown Prince? The employee replied, "Your humble servant is not sure. But when the Crown Prince plundered a lot of valuable items from our shop, and when he escaped, he brought it all along." Sir Moe seemed very angry, and from the looks of it, it was possible that he had chased after the Crown Prince to get the valuables back. Huang Yueli frowned, seemingly unable to understanding his motive. Even if Moe were to chase after the Crown Prince, but in order to get the items back, it shouldn't be something effortless, so why would he waste so much time? Huang Yueli found another employee and his answer was similar to the first. She hesitated for a moment and decided to proceed outside to take a look. Luckily, the Crown Prince had led a large group of people running wildly on the streets. That scenario had left quite a deep impression on others. Huang Yueli inquired someone by the roadside and very quickly, she located the route which the Crown Prince had escaped in. She followed the pathway, but when she saw the destination, she was slightly surprised as she frowned. The place that they had gone to was actually the royal treasury. She had been to this royal treasure previously. The last time was to obtain the flame cloud pearl from the treasury, so that she could advance in her level. At that time, she had been pursued by the imperial tutor for several miles, escaping all the way to the royal palace before she managed to shake him off. To think that the Crown Prince had brought his men to escape to this place. Could it be that Moe had also followed them to this place? As suspicions started to form in Huang Yueli's mind, her speed started to decrease by quite a bit. You can also listen on. From her previous experience, Huang Yueli was very sure that the royal treasury was filled with golden-scaled guards and other experts and would be heavily guarded. It would be best to proceed carefully if she didn't want to make a huge commotion and got besieged. Huang Yueli followed the previous pathway that she had taken before and found the air vent that she had entered the previous time. She hid behind the opening and secretly spied on the situation, following which she raised her brow in surprise. Originally, there were 2 guards keeping watch under the air vent and she was considering on how she could knock them unconscious without making a commotion. Who would know that today there wasn't anyone at all? Although surprised, she didn't hesitate and with the tip of her toes, she leapt upwards onto the ledge of the wall and made her way into the little ventilator hole. She did not meet with any obstructions throughout the entire process and successfully infiltrated into the inner section. Stop him, quick, stop him. Huang Yueli had just jumped down from the wall when she heard a gust of flustered and exasperated yelling, as well as several mechanisms being activated. She got a shock as she thought she had fallen into some sort of trap. Her eyes widened after observing closely. The result was, what the Moe is really here. Moe was indeed trapped within the royal treasury and he had to face being besieged by several experts alone, and among those included the imperial tutor and another 4th-degree realm practitioner who had always been guarding the royal treasury. Besides them, there were several golden-scaled guards commanders who were currently in the 3rd-degree realm. If it was purely based on battle power alone, even though the imperial tutor and the rest had an advantage in terms of manpower, but with that alone to defeat Moe, who was both an experienced and skilled 5th-degree realm expert, seemed like an impossible task. However, they still had the upper hand. In the royal treasury, various mechanisms were installed to protect the treasures and it was important to take precaution on every single step, otherwise it might end up in fatal disaster. Moe was not familiar to these mechanisms and he knew nothing about the topography of the royal treasury. On one end, the imperial tutor and others were attacking him with all their might, while on the other hand, they were activating the mechanisms in the royal treasury. This had caused various obstacles to Moe. Although Moe's power was much stronger than them on an entire level, but the mechanisms were extremely powerful and was caught unprepared several times. When this had dragged on, he gradually found it hard to deal with and subsequently fell into a disadvantage. The imperial tutor's face expressed boundless pleasure. Everyone hold on, this deceitful thief is not going to hold on much longer. Everyone listen to my commands. Let's quickly take him down and hand him over to the Crown Prince. Crown Prince will definitely reward you handsomely. All those present were under the Crown Prince's personal doctrine, hence all of them had the same thoughts in mind and hastened the rhythm of their attacks. Huang Yueli blinked her eyes and after observing for a short while, she came to an understanding. It looked like while the Crown Prince was escaping, he had brought along the treasures and lured Moe to the inside of the royal treasury. On one hand, it was to borrow the powers of the mechanisms and guards to capture Moe, while on the other hand, there was a malicious plot brewing. Moe was Li Moying's bodyguard, and if he were caught intruding into the royal treasury with the intention to steal, it would definitely affect Li Moying's reputation. In this way, Crown Prince could successfully discredit Li Moying and smear his reputation, while regaining fame for himself. Besides that, if Crown Prince were to take Moe away from her, Li Shuai would be able to grab this opportunity to find trouble with Huang Yueli at the Valiant Martial Manor. You can also listen on. In the eyes of the Crown Prince and Seventh Princess, although Huang Yueli had a good innate skill, but her age was just too young and her cultivation was only at the first-degree realm. If it hadn't been for Li Moying, she was not even be fit to be an opponent for any one of them. As long as they removed the guard that Li Moying had left by her side, she would become a helpless little sheep waiting for slaughter. They had not preempted that Huang Yueli was actually able to use her own power to take care of Li Shuai and those men whom she had brought along, and even gave them a good thrashing. Now, she had even rushed to the royal treasury in time. With an unexpected variable like her, the plan that Crown Prince had plotted to capture Moe alive was not possible to materialize. This was because in a place filled with mechanisms was exactly Huang Yueli's home field. Even if the Crown Prince's mechanisms were to be counted fully, to pick such a location was akin to using a stone and crush his own feet. In the middle of the treasury, Moe's disadvantage was becoming more and more obvious. On seeing that his actions were gradually becoming slower, the imperial tutor's wrinkle-ridden face let out a smile as he shouted, "Quick, surround him everyone, let's all." Before he could finish his words, they heard a dull noise reverberating from the treasury. Imperial tutor scowled as he shouted, "Didn't I say this already? Don't activate the mechanisms without my orders, have you all heard?" This, as he was speaking, his eyes suddenly grew wider as his entire face expressed shock. A huge rumble sound blared, and unknowingly the largest mechanism in the royal treasury was activated as huge rocks dropped down from their head as though it was hailstone. The only difference was the rocks were larger than the hailstones and had a diameter of at least 1 meter. If one were to be struck by it, one would definitely end up wounded or dead. Imperial tutor hastily avoided it as his heart was flustered by a peal of astonishment and panic. The reason was because the only way to activate this largest mechanism was only known to him and the other fourth-degree realm expert who was responsible for guarding the royal treasury. But now that both of them were here, who was it that had activated the mechanism? Unless there was a traitor within the royal treasury who had secretly learned how to activate the mechanism. But wasn't this just impossible? In order to activate such a powerfully large mechanism, it would require a lot of strength, and without the power of the fourth-degree realm practitioner, even if one knew the method, one would not have enough strength to activate it. But what the imperial tutor didn't know was to use brute force to activate the mechanism was actually the last resort. This method would only be used by those who had no idea whatsoever about mechanisms and had no choice but to choose such a stupid method. However, to an armament master like Huang Yueli, to activate such a low-level mechanism was a simple task to undertake. Not only did she activate the large hailstone mechanism, she also made some minor adjustments to the mechanism itself. This resulted in the descent of hailstones dropping more on the imperial tutor and others' heads, concentrated to the extent of impossibility. As for Moe's side, there were only a few pieces of hailstone and he just had to slightly adjust his position and would be able to avoid it easily. A glint of surprise flashed past Moe's eyes as he had never expected that the situation would take such a huge unexpected turn. Just as he realized that he was about to be defeated, and since he didn't want to fall into the evil claws of the imperial tutor to become a tool against his master, he had already made the worst decision of perishing together with them. Who knew that just as he was about to find the best opportunity to strike, this unexpected change happened? You can also listen on. Since the current situation was advantageous to him, with Moe's abundant experience in battle, he naturally would not miss such a wonderful opportunity. He immediately worked up his cultivation method and displaying his profound skill, the flexible sword in his hands waltzed out streams of blinding lightning like sword glimmer. His profound energy was of spectacular significance as his attacks were directed towards the Imperial Tutor and the others. Imperial Tutor and the rest were using all their might to avoid the densely falling hailstones, and next up was a series of full-strength attacks from a 5th-degree realm practitioner. What was more fraudulent was they would also suffer sneak attacks from Huang Yueli time to time. Under 3 simultaneous avenues, they were unable to ward off blows. Very soon, all of their meridians on their hands and feet were severed by Moe and they fell onto the floor, unable to get up. And just at the instant that they had fallen, the hailstones that had continuously been dropping on their heads suddenly stopped. Upon seeing this situation, the heartbeats of the Imperial Tutor and others almost came to a halt. Did it need to be so deceptive? Who among them didn't grow eyes and switched on the mechanism? Why was it such a coincidence? And it had to stop right now. If it had stopped a quarter of an hour earlier, they would not have been checkmated one after one. At the same time, their hearts were annoyed beyond words. If they had known earlier and just persevered just a little longer, if they could persevere just a quarter of an hour more, to avoid a few more strikes and the hailstones would have stopped. By then, they would be able to turn defeat into victory. Sigh, why didn't they just persevere just a little more earlier? However, what they didn't know was the stopping of the hailstones was actually controlled by Huang Yueli in the background, and no matter how long more they had persevered, as long as they did not fall, the falling hailstones would naturally not stop. After Moe had defeated all the enemies, he hurriedly turned around to search for the person who had been aiding him in secret. Huang Yueli slowly walked out from a corner, bearing a faint smile on her face. "Third miss. It's you." Moe hastily bowed. Imperial Tutor's eyes super wide as he stared daggers at her. Bye, Ruoli." Huang Yueli nodded towards Moe to acknowledge his greeting and turned her gaze towards the Imperial Tutor as her lips surfaced a frosty smile. "Imperial Tutor, how have you been? Ever since we last met at the Peach Blossom Banquet, I thought that we would never cross paths ever again. After all, I am a 6th-grade talent and you are just a passé old man who's almost dying, so we're not on the same route. God knows, we're played around by the will of heavens that we have crossed paths so soon again, so this is quite a surprise." Imperial Tutor was choked by her words that his entire face turned red with fury and embarrassment. This wretched lass, every single time she opened her mouth, it would spill out words which would infuriate one to spit blood out. And to make it worse, one was not able to rebut whatever she had said. The reason was because every word she had said was the truth, and only because it was the truth, it was unbearable, as though stepping down hard on others' open wounds. Saying that he was a passé old man and they were not on the same route. Although the words were unpleasant to hear, but the Imperial Tutor had indeed, during recent times, felt that he would not be able to live much longer. As for Huang Yueli, she had just revealed her outstanding talent. Like the sun in midday, sooner or later she would gradually ascend to become a shining star. They were indeed incomparable. The Imperial Tutor gasped a couple of breaths before he forcefully opened his mouth. You wretched lass who doesn't know how to show your respects to your seniors, I am the Imperial Tutor and even the Emperor have to show respect to me. What's more, when your father was still in the South U Kingdom, he would greet me as his senior. Is this how you talk to me? You can also listen on. The sides of Huang Yueli's mouth curled upward slightly as her eyes flashed obvious signs of ridicule. My father greeted you as a senior was to respect your age, thinking that you are an elderly worth respecting. My father had always been an upright person, but how would we ever expect that in this whole wide world, there's such a person who isn't worthy of respect? As for me, she paused momentarily, and under the embittered gaze of the imperial tutor, she unhurriedly opened her mouth. You're just my guard's defeated opponent and prisoner. Frankly speaking, you're worse than the servants under me, so why should I bother to show respect to you? Have I got nothing better to do? The imperial tutor almost fainted when he heard these words. This wretched lass actually compared him with the servants. He was a powerful fourth-degree realm practitioner, and even the emperor had to treat him with respect as his status was utmost valuable. You're good, by Ruoli. With such arrogance, sooner or later you will suffer retribution, and it will be soon. Let me tell you, seventh princess is already back in the kingdom, and she's not an ordinary girl. If you were to fall into the hands of the seventh princess, the imperial tutor had originally wanted to scare her, but in the middle of speaking, he suddenly stopped. He suddenly remembered that he had been sent to the royal treasury to hold back Moe so that it would be more convenient for seventh princess to deal with Huang Yueli. But why was Huang Yueli able to appear here now? Shouldn't she still be at the valiant martial manor, being hung up to be tortured by the seventh princess and thrown into the darkest and dirtiest water prison? Why did she appear in the royal treasury? And her dressing looked tidy and her complexion was rosy, looking much prettier than before. Her condition couldn't be better. In what way did she look like she was being given corrective punishment? Could it be that this wretched lass had heard news of the seventh princess going over to find trouble with her, so she had ran away? Or had something happened to the seventh princess, made adjustments, and had yet to inform them of the changes in her plan? Imperial tutor was still puzzled after much thought. Instead, Huang Yueli smiled and said, Imperial tutor, you were trying to say that Li Shuer wanted to capture me to teach me a lesson, right? But it is just too unfortunate. Your seventh princess had indeed gone to my place, but in the middle of her journey. She was burning with desire, took off all her clothes and did a striptease and hugged her own guards while doing illicit stuff. TSK, everyone in the entire royal palace would had already heard of this. What? Imperial tutor gave a shocking expression, retorting unbelievably, what rubbish are you sprouting? Why would the seventh princess do such a thing? Do you think I would believe this? Huang Yueli didn't think much of it and shrugged her shoulders. Believe it or not, it doesn't matter to me. Anyway, the person who is embarrassed is not me. What's more, the minute you leave the royal treasury and head back to the palace, you'd naturally find out about everything. Saying that, she suddenly stopped, as though she had remembered something else. Oh, that's right. I almost forgot about this. If you want to return to the palace, you must be able to retain your life in order to do so. Otherwise, you'd probably never find out for the rest of your life on what had actually happened to Li Shuer. What do you want to do to me? If you were to proceed at random and offend me, the emperor would definitely not let you off easily. Huang Yueli laughed. Imperial tutor, you've lived like a prince for too long a time that your brain isn't really working. The emperor protects you naturally is because your power is strong and can bless the entire South Yu kingdom. But if I can deal with you, naturally it means that my power is stronger than you. Weighing the pros and cons, whose side would the emperor stand on? You can also listen on. Imperial tutor was stifled till he turned silent. Because everything that Huang Yueli had mentioned was correct. In soaring heaven's continent where martial skills was absolute, whoever held more power, whoever would be justified and whose fists were harder would represent truth. If Huang Yueli were to kill him, it would mean that she was much stronger. Who would, for a dead person, go against a much stronger living being? Huang Yueli looked at his wrinkled pale face and chillingly said, At your age, you're still so naive. Acting like a little boy. Are you here to perform a comedy? Another wave of melancholy rushed up with imperial tutor and narrowly bringing up any rage. What was this? She actually said he was innocent? And yet he had really been innocent for that one moment. Imperial Tutor gritted his teeth as he hissed, "Today you're lucky, but you want to kill me? Your thinking is too wishful. I still have a life-saving trump card. If you really wish to take a risk out of desperation, then don't blame me for perishing along with you." A life-saving trump card. That's good. By then don't be stingy and use it all. But that is if you still have the opportunity to live past today. Huang Yueli clapped her hands and instructed to Moe, who was standing behind, "Brother Moe, I'd like to trouble you to drag these dregs to the 5th floor." Moe responded yes and immediately went forward. He didn't have that much patience compared to those servants at the valiant Martial Manor, willing to drag one by one nicely along. As a 5th-degree realm expert, doing these heavy manual work was like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. If it wasn't his future mistress's instructions, he wouldn't even bother. Once he really did it, it was naturally plain brutal. He simply threw these people entirely into a pile and stacked them up one by one. After they have been stacked together, he found a rope and tied them all together. Among those who had surrounded Moe were 3rd-degree realm experts and above. Not just the Imperial Tutor, the rest of them were all famed experts around the South Yu Kingdom and held some sort of status within the kingdom, and were the subject of flattery of others. Who would knew that once they had fallen into Moe's hands, they were thrown here and there, even worse than a sack. Imperial Tutor was howling himself hoarse in the entire process. "You brat, you dared to treat me like this. What do you think you're doing? I will never let you off easily. Let me go, I tell you." Moe had struck their meridians and they were completely unable to move, so all they could do was to bark some sounds out. He naturally would not bother about them, and very quickly, he had tied them into the shape of a rice dumpling. After which, he dragged them along effortlessly and dragged all of them upstairs at one go. The 5th floor was the Royal Treasury's treasure pavilion, and everything inside were extremely valuable treasures. When Huang Yueli came previously, she had intentionally ransacked the entire treasure pavilion one round and had already familiarized herself with all the surrounding mechanisms at the back of her palm. She commanded Moe to drag that lump of a rice dumpling to one wall. "All right, just leave them there will do. Don't ever step on that brick in front of that place. Otherwise when it activates the mechanism, even I will find it difficult to save you." Moe quickly withdrew his foot, which had almost overstepped the line, and carefully put the people down. Following that, he returned to Huang Yueli's side as he bowed, "3rd Miss, what should we do next? Please give me your orders." This. Huang Yueli blinked her eyes as that pair of splendidly brilliant big eyes suddenly sparkled, looking extremely delicate and cute. But those who knew her had already secretly gave a chilling shudder. You can also listen on. Imperial Tutor had not understood her well and didn't knew that danger was lurking nearby as he continued to scream and shout in an attempt to threaten Huang Yueli. Moe had begun to grieve silently for the Imperial Tutor in his heart. Huang Yueli thought for a moment and suddenly her eyes shone brightly as she said, "That's right, I recalled. As I was saying, someone seems to be missing here, so it's the Crown Prince. Today's plot was schemed by him single-handedly, and in the end, he escaped alone. Where on earth would you find such a good deal?" Moe responded, "What is 3rd Miss planning to do?" Huang Yueli replied, "Help me capture Li Majuan here, I have my own plans." When Moe heard what Huang Yueli said, he didn't move out immediately. Instead he hesitated for a moment and replied, "3rd Miss, this isn't too good an idea. These fellows here are all 3rd and 4th degree realm practitioners. Although I have already struck their meridians, but if anything were to happen and you being here alone, it would be very dangerous." Huang Yueli laughed and said, "No issue, don't worry about it. Such a small matter, I'm still able to handle it myself." However, Moe didn't move an inch. He naturally knew that this third miss had heaven-defying tricks up her sleeves and was extremely awesome, but he was already worried that she might belittle her enemy and cause a mishap because of that. What's more, since the practitioners here are much higher than her level by several realms, if anyone had any secret method to remove the restriction, then Huang Yueli would not be able to handle it. Huang Yueli looked at his troubled expression and smiled while shaking her head. Brother Moe, you actually don't believe in me. Alright, I'll just clamp them up together. Clamp them up together. Moe was filled with bewilderment. What did that mean? The very next moment, his mouth turned into an O shape. Huang Yueli outstretched her hand and pressed on the wall. Hearing a bam sound, the two huge metal rows of teeth on the two sides of the wall swung ferociously towards the middle to join together, like a rat trap, and clamped those people right in the middle. Ouch! So painful. The clamp was originally very tight and was meant for one person only, but now that it was clamping so many people at one time, all of them were squeezed into a bundle, only feeling that their ribs were almost being smashed into pieces, and all of them began groaning one after another. A few sweat beads started to fall from Moe's forehead. No wonder third miss warned him not to step over that piece of brick, so there was such a sinister mechanism hidden. Just a little bit more, he would have been like a street rat and the person who was clipped there would have been him. But looking at the current situation, he was relieved. In this heavily mechanized treasury, such a high-level armament master like Huang Yueli would probably be much safer than a fifth-degree realm practitioner like him, so he really didn't need to worry much for her. Moe bumped his fist towards Huang Yueli as a form of respect, turned and left towards the East Palace wing to capture the crown prince. Huang Yueli had nothing to do since she was all alone in the royal treasury. She took a tour on the 5th floor of the treasure pavilion and removed all the treasures kept in several rooms and kept it into her own realm ring. As she was keeping it, she discontentedly criticized, "Sign, this South Yu kingdom is really poor. When I came the last round, there were several not bad-looking treasures, but after those had been removed, there's no additional new pieces and what's left are just these junk." Huang Yueli mumbled her complaints in a whisper and her tone was not high, but in the imperial tutor's ears, it made his heart tremble tremendously. So the thief who had stolen away a huge amount of treasures in the royal treasury just over a month ago, was you. You can also listen on. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.